was raised in a family of the physicists. My father is a physicist. He works at the university. My grandfather is a physicist. He works at the university. My mom is a physicist, but she works in a bank. Well, her life went a little bit differently. My granny, she is a mathematician. She works at the university, and she is one of the leading professors in the country in mathematics. So guess what? My family was crazy about what? Math, science, stats, and numbers. Numbers were literally everywhere. My family was also crazy about measuring everything. So in my family we had the standards for the intelligence. So I, as their daughter, had to fulfill those standards, their expectations. Those standards were not written, on the board. You come to the kitchen and there are those, intelligence standards written on the board. No, they were there in the family, in the air that I had to fulfill. So what those standards were? I had to get good grades in math, of course, and in physics. I had to win as much Olympiads as possible, on the school level, on the regional level, on the country level. Third, I had to enter Moscow State University and study at the Department of Mathematics there. So now looking back and at what I have achieved in life and how I fulfilled all of those standards, I didn't achieve any, and I'm not the smartest person ever, according to my family standards. Well, I did fine with math and physics. I didn't go to any of the Olympiads, and I did not apply for Moscow State University. I was a rebellious person, so no, no intelligence standards. Looking back at my past and reflecting, days after days, I was thinking of why was my intelligence, my unique ability to think, to express myself, to communicate with others, were measured by certain standards, by certain numbers, by how many mathematical problems I could solve, by how many smart philosophical books I read, by how many historical dates I knew. And another funny part that I did was my family was all about standards. I decided, let me take an IQ test. That would be, the peak of, those standardized testing. Okay, I did the IQ test, and the score is 90 if you want to consider yourself smart. I didn't do 90, so I was to the list of standards that I didn't fulfill for my family, I had that IQ test that I failed as well. I did fine, I did average, I don't want to tell you the number, but it was not 90. And even in IQ there is a society of the top, IQ achievers, and they have their special gatherings and discussion. Yeah, I will never go there. So why all of this exists? Why my family was measuring me about the standards? Why I was taking IQ? And the thing is that it's not just in my family. It is across the societies, across the world, where people measure their intelligence in numbers. We are all striving to understand it in terms of numbers. YEGA was one of the examples, SAT in the United States, couple of exams in my home, IQ. Why are we measuring our unique abilities, something such a huge, in terms of verbal reasoning, in terms of logical thinking, and in terms of solving math issues? Somehow, if these tests were created, I believe they measure something, right? Because they're used across the world, but they do measure, they do show something. They do show that you can perform well on a certain type of test. And they do show a certain type of intelligence that you have if you could do it successfully. But it doesn't show you the whole picture, the whole scale of what human capacity is capable of. And one interesting part is that recent researchers by the psychologists in Harvard, they say that there is no such thing as one intelligence. There is multiple types of intelligence. There is so-called musical intelligence. There is so-called linguistic intelligence. There is also spatial intelligence and how you move in space and how you communicate and how you're able to perform well with your body. There is interpersonal intelligence of how you communicate with others and express yourself. There is also an interpersonal of how well you deal with yourself. I never knew about this type of intelligence, but they do exist, and the researchers keep discovering more. There is an example of an interesting lady. She was one of the best dancers and choreographers of the whole time. She designed choreography for Broadway show The Cats. Most of you know it's still going for years and years, and it's incredibly popular. Well, you know, this girl, when she was studying at school, her mom took her to a psychologist because her mom thought that she had a learning disorder, because the girl couldn't pass any exams at school, she couldn't solve any math, she had problems reading, she had problems communicating, and the whole family thought that, well, she needs a special treatment. And when they brought her to the psychologist had a conversation with the girl, and then he left the room. And the girl, what she did, there was a, the music box. She pressed the button, the music started playing, and the girl started dancing. And psychologist, he was observing all of that, and he called the mom and said, look, your child does not have a learned disability. She will be unique in dancing, and that's what she did. She was one of the most amazing dancers of all the time. Another interesting example of Alfred Binet. If you know this person, he was the one who created scale for IQ test. And what he actually said that IQ testing and IQ scale was not designed to measure your learning ability or how smart you are, your mental worth. IQ in general was designed to identify kids with special needs, to prepare them, to create for them a special learning environment. And he said that you cannot measure intelligence, you cannot measure something such a huge and unique with some linear parameters that are used in IQ and a lot of standardized testing. Therefore, instead of rating yourself from 0 to 10 on how smart you are, instead of taking IQ test, I would like to pose the question a little bit differently. Ask yourself not how smart you are, but how intelligent you are. Because there are so many ways in which you can be intelligent. Either in special in dancing, either in musical, either in linguistics, and so much more. And therefore, in this upcoming year, I'm wishing you to discover how are you intelligent, and I'm sure you are.